Okay, lads and ladies, a quick run through on how to get you going with PHP. Okay, first step, make sure that MEMP's up and running. Make sure that your servers are started and you can see your two green ticks on your Apache server and your mysql server. Okay, first step, make sure that's done. Second step, make sure that you have your myPHP or PHP is up and running, and you know your database that you're going to work with and the table that we're going to start populating. So basically what we're going to do here is populate this table in particular. It's called hot food. Okay. A few little odds and sods. Understand that you've got in your applications folder, you've got a map folder, and that's obvious, and then you've got a HT documents, nice HT docs. In here is where we're going to stick all our bits and pieces, and there's a reason for doing that. Apache looks straight across at this particular folder looking for files to run. Because we're all web-based, Apache's our web server, it's going to be looking in this particular folder for index.html files and any file that's actually going to run on a web browser. I've got a folder here called Canteen Stuff. Now I've done this because I'm going to populate this particular folder with the stuff that the Canteen staff are going to need to access. You can put any naming conventions you like, but this just makes it easy for me. I've got three files, and I'll give these three files to you: a connection, an index, and a thank you. And we're going to go. The course of this little video is to quickly show you why we need those three files, and the three of them basically are PHP. Okay, so back to where we started from over here. In our PHP myadmin, I've populated a table. It's called hot food. It's in my AQ canteen database. Oh, I should mention administration. Well, we've already done this, but just check it in your So if I click on my AQ canteen folder database, and I come across my privileges, just make sure that I've got not root, but not make sure I've got a user that has all privileges granted to that particular database. Now, as we go through this, you'll have databases specific to particular users, and you need to populate that with different privileges, and we'll talk about that later on. But for the time being, I've got an admin user, and for that matter, he's actually got, well, she has all got access to all privileges within that particular database. Not much different to root, okay? But we have dealt with that before. Coming back to structure, and again, I've got many tables here, and you will have many tables in this database as well. I'm just simply talking about our hot food, and the hot food is going to be populated in this particular task by our canteen staff. So it's basically going to be I'm buying in 5 meat pies, I'm buying in 10 sausage rolls, and so forth, and that's where we're coming into. Okay, so in my hot food table, I've got 3 entities: my hot food ID, which is auto increment, a type, and a cost. Now, have an understanding. Again, you'll do all this in Workbench, but anyway, my type I've set to text as opposed to varchar, and I think I set it to about 20 characters or something like that. My hot food ID is obviously going to be int value, and it's going to be auto increment, and it's going to be auto primary key as well too. My cost, because I'm using numeric value for my cost, so dollars and so forth, I've set it to decimal, and when we do that, we've actually got to specify 2 variables for our decimal. We've got to say before the decimal point and after the decimal point. So I've set 8.2. Now, basically what I'm saying is that's 8 characters before the decimal point and only 2 characters after the decimal point. So when you talk about cents, you have 99 cents. It's 2 characters. 8 characters on the other side, so it could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.00. Okay, so it's just basically a dollar. It's allowing you to enter in numbers. Now, bear in mind that's not going to accept the dollar symbol, so we're going to have to catch that as well too. Really, really simple to start with, but at least to get you going. Okay, now there's nothing in this table as per se. A few things you got to remember is the names of our entities. I've just made them quite simple. I said type and then cost. Okay, over across to brackets, which I know everyone loves to use brackets, so I thought I'd bring that on board for you guys to play with. 2 files. Now again, I'm going to give you these 2 files, so you don't have to retype them all, but you're going to need to make modifications and improvements and changes. This is just a beginning point for you to start with, okay? And I'll run through them quickly. So I've got 3 files. My index file over here, so this is just basically HTML. There's nothing too flash in this. So for you guys in IST should love this because this is really, really simple stuff. What you need to see is that I've got the title's not really relevant because it just basically tells me what's happening. This is a header, and it's hot food. The name of the form that I'm going to use effectively is going to be hot food. Has a few action points. So we're calling in a form, And there, as you can see, it's highlighted. It shows me what the form is. The forms are a basic HTML call. It has an action, which means it's actually going to do something to some other file, and it's going to call in a file that's called thankyou.php. Now, we'll play with thankyou.php in a second. You call it what you like, but they've got to be linked. And it's a post method, which basically means it's going to go out and do some stuff to it. Now, there's post and get, but don't worry about that for the time being. Okay, now I've got two different entities, type and cost. And in that, now remember, this is the form. Okay, this is the thing that's actually going to be displayed. In my type, I'm saying it's an input, and it's of type text. So, and it's called type. Okay, and it is required. Okay, I need to have an entry there. The other one is cost. Again, it's also a type of text, and it's called cost. Important point: those two, type and cost, have to relate to these names here, type and cost. Stuff that up, you're going to be in a world of pain. You can get around it, but don't. Okay, make those the same. So first of all, make sure those two are done. The bottom down here is just a submit button. This one just basically, it's going to be the standard submit button you use everywhere. So it's really, really simple. So that's our basic PHP, or in the case it's index.php, basic form. You will generate this, and this will be much, much bigger than what it is here, but it's a beginning point to get you started. Okay, and you can add to this, of course. So, you can add another, if I've got another field I want to add into here, then that's where it comes into. Okay, so that's the easy one. The thank you, that's actually going to be the last thing you're going to do. This does all the hard work. I'll explain to you first of all the connection file. This doesn't much change from bit to bit. In here, you've got these constants, okay, and they're basically, no matter what happens, this is pretty much going to stay the same, except when you push up to the server when you finally finish this assessment task. Localhost will change. Localhost is obviously your machine. Understand you have to talk to the port. Now, normally when we're talking here, okay, we talk localhost, and it's the port 8888, so 4 8s. That's our Apache port we're going to use. Whereas if you're actually talking to the database exists, and you can see that there at 8889. Now that's the location, that's the port location for the database. So again, the Apache, your web server, works at 8888. Database works at 8889. And if you're not sure about any of that, and if you forget any of that, it's here. It's in your preferences. Look under your ports. There it is there. Okay, so your MySQL port's 8889 and your Apache port's 888. Now, if you want to change that, yeah, knock yourself out. Okay, but I'm not going to bother. That's the standard ports. All right, come back. So that's got your host. That's where your database is physically existing. The name of the database, and I'm not doing this in order, I know. The name of the database in our case is AQ Canteen. It's whatever you want to call your database, but mine is called AQ Canteen. Okay. Now, these next two will change from time to time. So I'm using admin, and my password is admin. So that's the account that I talked about at the beginning up here, talking about privileges. So admin, and I've given it its secret squirrel password of admin as well. All right, so that's those bits and pieces. This next line here, this basically does all the connection, and it calls into the connection, and it's called $con, so just basically for connection, and return the con. So that's the command to actually get it to work, okay, to actually make the physical connection to the database. All right, easy enough. Yes, I know, it is easy enough. Okay, jump into the thank you. Okay, the thank you calls the connection PHP file to start with, so it says must have that to start with before we go, and it says make happen, so connect. Okay, so it's $connect, so remember that file there finished off with a con, that bit there. Cool. Okay, so it calls that in. Now it's calling in two entities there. Okay, type and cost. That was our over the side over here. So think about brackets. I do like you can do this. So type and cost. There are two entities. There they are there, $, and so you'll notice also they're calling in. So it's making connection. It's saying connect to that particular entity within that particular table. And your actual query, so you're making a connection, your actual query sits here, okay? So this is your actual SQL query that you should all be happy to do. All right, so it's saying insert into hot food. Now, remember, hot food is the name of the table, okay, within the database, okay? So I'll come back over here. So we're inserting into the hot food table, all right? And we're inserting two things, type and cost. Okay, so they're the two, type and cost. All right. Now, what are we putting in there? We're putting in there what I get out of this file here, okay, which is my type and my cost. Okay, so actually entering the values from my index.php file, passing them across into my thank you file and pushing them up. Now, if it all works, then you'll get a nice little message. That's what echo is. Echo's a message. Thank you for contacting us. Or you can put anything like there. I'll probably change that. Anyway, alternatively, because this is only one time only, and you'll see in a minute what I mean by that, you may want to put a loop in here somewhere to make it go back and say do this again, and you can do that. Call it back up again. Now, if for whatever reason it fails, you'll get this error message. Okay, can't enter the data. Again, you can put any error message there. That's just text. Okay, hopefully you don't get that, but if you do, that means something's wrong here with your connection, or chances are there's something wrong with this file here. Okay, now save that stuff and then run it. Now to run it, it's just simply running this particular index.php file. Now remember I come across here and I talked to you about the idea of sitting there. Okay, it's PHP. PHP will run just like HTML, and the fact that it will actually launch in a browser. Okay, so over here, I'm glad here's one I've prepared earlier. Notice I've called out localhost. I've given it the port, the folder that it's in, canteen staff. Okay, so that's my canteen staff. Because it's index.php, I actually don't have to specify index.php. I could write in there index.php because the browser already recognizes that, it finds it, it'll just launch it. So if I run that again, this is my simple file. Sorry, my simple form. There's a better. Type in. Okay, let's go. Big pie. Okay, big. Oh, look out! I've put one in there before. It auto fills for me. Big pie, and the cost is I don't know, $4.50. Now notice I'm not putting the dollar sign in there. It doesn't accept that. And there's my little submit button. How cool is that? Okay, and look, when you get this up and running and it works perfectly, then make it pretty. Okay, then use your CSS and put little flashy bits all over the place. Great, but for the time being, this is just bare bones. All right, hit my submit button. Hopefully you'll get this. Thank you for contacting us. Now that's where I say I would like a loop. I'd probably put a loop back in here so it actually respawns that page again, so you can actually enter more stuff in. But anyway, for the time being, let's get it going. Okay, back to my database, which is my local one, local on my computer. Nothing's changed. Oh no, it hasn't worked. No, that's true. Just got to refresh. Okay, so if I hit my refresh button, go to my browse, I will now notice I have all this stuff everywhere, just here. Big pie, cost $4.50, auto increments, it's number 1. Okay, I jump back over here and say, next one, I could just go back if I wanted to. Small pie, and he's going to be cost $3.50 because he's heaps cheaper. Good if I could spell, wouldn't it? SM. Hey, trying to do two things too many fast. Okay, here we go. Submit. Thank you for coming. It didn't come? Oh yeah, no, just refresh. Remember that? Just refresh. And then small pie kicks in, $3.50. Big pie, $4.50. User IDs too. It actually is, I set it to look at the price rather than the index, so you can actually sort on particular lines there. Anyway, so and so forth and so on. So you can populate based on that really, really simple form. Now, of course, you're going to make your forms much more complex than this, but at least this gets you going. I'll put all the stuff on OneNote. I'll host this video on YouTube somewhere, like, I don't know, find it somewhere. Or I'll give it to you, I don't care. Come and give me a hoy if you need a hand. This is really, really easy stuff. Don't make it too complex, but you've got to get it done. All right, guys, have fun with this. Cheers.